George's Marvellous Medicine. Marvellous Medicine number 3. Here it is, cried Mr. Kelly Cranky, rushing into the kitchen. 1 carton of flea powder for dolls and 1 tin of brown shoe polish. George poured the flea powder into the giant saucepan. Then he scooped the shoe polish out of its tin and added that as well. Stir it up, George shouted Mr. Cranky. Give it another boil. We've got it this time. I'll bet we've got it. After Marvellous Medicine number 3 had been boiled and stirred, George took a cupful of it out into the yard to try it on another chicken. Mr. Cranky ran after him, flapping his arms and hopping with excitement. Come and watch this one, he called out to Mrs. Cranky. Come and watch us turning an ordinary chicken into a lovely great big one that lays eggs as large as footballs. I hope you do better than last time, said Mrs. Cranky, following them out. Come on, chicken, said George, holding out a spoonful of medicine number 3. Good chicken, chick, 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 chick. Have some of this lovely medicine. A magnificent black cooker with a scarlet comb came stepping over. The cooker looked at the spoon and it went peck. Cock-a-doodle-doo, squawked the cooker, shooting up into the air and coming down again. Watch him now, cried Mr. Cranky. Watch him grow. Any moment he'll going to start getting bigger and bigger. Mr. Kelly Cranky, Mrs. Cranky, and little George stood in the yard staring at the black cooker. The cooker stood quite still. It looked as though it had a headache. What's happening to its neck? Mrs. Cranky said. It's getting longer, George said. I'll say it's getting longer, Mrs. Cranky said. Mr. Cranky at once said nothing. Last time it was the legs, Mrs. Cranky said. Now it's the neck. Who wants a chicken with a long neck? You can't eat a chicken's neck. It was an ordinary sight. The cooker's body hadn't grown at all, but the neck was now about 6 feet long. All right, George, Mr. Cranky said. What else have you forgotten? I don't know, George said. Oh, yes, you know. You do, Mr. Cranky said. Come along, boy, think. There's probably just one vital thing missing and you've got to remember it. I put in some engine oil from the garage, George said. Did you have that on your list? Erica, cried Mr. Cranky. That's the answer. How much did you put in? Half a pint, George said. Mr. Cranky ran to the garage and found another half pint of oil and some antifreeze. George called after him. I sloshed in a bit of antifreeze. Marvellous Medicine number 4. Back in the kitchen was again George with Mr. Cranky watching him anxiously. Tipped half a pint of engine oil and some antifreeze into the giant saucepan. Boil it up again, cried Mr. Cranky. Boil it and stir it. George boiled it and stirred it. You'll never get it right, said Mrs. Cranky. Don't forget you don't just have to have the same things, but you've got to have exactly the same amount of those things. And how can you possibly do that? You keep out of this, cried Mr. Cranky. We're doing fine. We've got it this time. You see if we haven't. This was George's marvelous medicine number 4. And when it had boiled for a couple of minutes, George once again carried a cupful of it out into the yard. Mr. Cranky ran after him. Mrs. Cranky followed more slowly. You're going to have some mighty chickens around here if you go on like this, she said. Dish it out, George, cried Mr. Cranky. Give a spoonful to that one over there. He pointed to the brown hen. George knelt down and held out the spoon with the new medicine in it. Chick, chick, he said. Try some of this. The brown hen walked over and looked at the spoon. Then it went packed. Ouch, it said. Then a funny whistling noise came out of its beak. Watch it grow, shouted Mr. Cranky. Don't be too sure, said Mrs. Cranky. What is this? Why is it whistling like that? Keep quiet, woman, cried Mr. Cranky. Give it a chance. They stood there staring at the brown hen. It's getting smaller, Joe said. Look at it, Dad. It's shrinking. And indeed it was. In less than a minute, the hen had shrunk so much it was no bigger than a new hatched chick. It looked ridiculous. Goodbye, Grandma. There's still something you've left out, Mr. Cranky said. I can't think about what it could be, George said. Give it up, Mrs. Cranky said. Pack it in. We'll never get it right. Mr. Cranky looked very forlorn. George looked pretty fat up too. He was still kneeling on the ground with the spoon in one hand and the cup full of medicine in the other. The ridiculous tiny brown hen was walking slowly away. At that point, Grandma came striding into the yard. From her enormous height, she glared down at the three people below her, and she shouted, "What's going on around here? Why hasn't anybody brought me my morning cup of tea? It's bad enough having to sleep in the yard with the rats and mice, but I'll be blown if I'm going to starve as well. No tea, no eggs and bacon, no buttered toast." "I'm sorry, Grandma," Mrs. Cranky said. "We've been terribly busy. I'll get you something right away." "Let George get it, the lazy little birds," Grandma shouted. Just then, the old woman spotted the cup in George's hand. She bent down and peered into it. She saw that it was full of brown liquid. It looked very much like tea. "Ho, ho!" she cried. "Ha, ha! So that's your little game, is it? You look after yourself all right, don't you? You make quite sure you've got a nice cup of morning tea, but you didn't think to bring one to your poor old grandma. I always knew you were a selfish pig." No, Grandma, George said. This isn't done like to me, boy. The enormous old had shouted. Pass it up here this minute. No, cried Mrs. Cranky. No, Mother, don't. That's not for you. Now you're assisting me too, shouted Grandma. My own daughter trying to stop me having my breakfast, trying to starve me out. Mr. Cranky looked out at the horrid old woman and he smiled sweetly. Of course it's for you, Grandma, he said. You take it and drink it while it's nice and hot. Don't think I won't, Grandma said, bending down from her great height and reaching out a huge horny hand for the cup. Hand it over, George. No, Grandma, George cried it out, pulling the cup away. You mustn't. You're not to have it. Give it to me, boy, yelled Grandma. Don't, cried Mrs. Cranky. That's George's Marvellous. Everything's George's round here, she shouted. Here, shouted Grandma. George's this, George's that. I'm fed up with it. She snatched the cup out of little George's hand and carried it high out of reach. Drink it out, Grandma, Mr. Cranky said, grinning. Hugely lovely tea. No, the other two cried, no. But it was too late. The ancient beanpole had already put the cup to her lips, and in one gulp she swallowed everything that was in it. Mother, wailed Mrs. Cranky, you've just dropped 50 doses of George's Marvellous Medicine No. 4, and look what tiny spoonful did to that little old brown hand. But Grandma didn't even hear her. Great clouds of steam were already pouring out of her mouth, and she was beginning to whistle. This is going to be interesting, Mr. Cranky said, still grinning. Now you've done it, cried Mrs. Cranky, glaring at her husband. You've cooked the old girl's goose. I didn't do anything, Mr. Cranky said. Oh, yes, you did. You told her to drink it. Tremendous hissing sound was coming from above his hands. Steam was shooting out of Grandma's mouth and nose and ears and whistling came as it came. She'll feel better after she's let off a bit of steam, Mr. Cranky said. She's going to blow up, Mrs. Cranky wailed. Her boiler's going to burst. Stand clear, Mr. Cranky said. George was quite alarmed. He stood up and ran back a few paces. The jet of white steam kept squirting out of the skinny old hag's head, and the whistling was so high and scared it hurt the ears. Call the fire brigade, cried Mrs. Cranky. Call the police. Man the hose pipes. Too late, said Mr. Cranky, looking pleased. Grandma, shaking Mrs. Cranky. Mother, run to the drinking draught and put your hand under the water. But even Even as they spoke, the whistling suddenly stopped and the stick disappeared. That was when Grandma began to get smaller. She had started off with her head as high as the roof of the house. But now she was coming down fast. "Watch this, George!" Mr. Cranky shouted, hopping around the yard and flapping his arms. What happened when someone had 50 spoonfuls instead of one? Very soon, Grandma was back to normal height. "Stop!" cried Mrs. Cranky. "That's just right." But she didn't stop. Smaller and smaller she got. Down and down she went. In another half minute, she was no bigger than a bottle of lemonade. "Now, did you feel well?" asked Mrs. Cranky anxiously. Grandma's tiny face still bore the same full and furious expression it had always had. Her eyes no bigger now than little keyholes, here blazing with anger. "How do I feel?" she yelled. Did you think I feel? How would you feel it if you've been a glorious giant a minute ago and suddenly you're a miserable midget? She's still going," shouted Mr. Cranky gleefully. "She's still getting smaller." And by golly, she was. When she was no bigger than a cigarette, Mrs. Cranky made a grab for her. She held her in her hands and she cried, "Now do I stop at her getting smaller still?" "You can't," said Mr. Cranky. "She has 50 times the right amount." "I must stop her," Mrs. Cranky wailed. "I can hardly see her as it is. Catch her hold of each end and the pull," Mr. Cranky said. By then, Grandma was the size of a matchstick and still shrinking fast. A moment later, she was no bigger than a pin and a pumpkin seed, and then... "Where is she?" cried Mrs. Cranky. "I've lost her." "Hooray!" said Mr. Cranky. "She's gone! She's disappeared completely!" cried Mrs. Cranky. "That's what happens to you if you're grumpy and bad-tempered," said Mr. Cranky. "Great medicine for you." Of years, George didn't know what to think. For a few minutes, Mrs. Cranky kept wondering round with a puzzled look on her face, saying, "Mother, where are you? Where have you gone? Where have you got to? Now can I find you?" But she calmed down quickly, and by lunchtime she was saying, "Oh, well, I suppose it's all for the best, really." She was a bit of a nuisance around the house, wasn't she? "Yes," Mr. Cranky said. "She most certainly was." George didn't say a word. She felt quite trembly. She knew something tremendous had taken place that morning. For a few brief moments, he had touched with the very tips of his fingers an edge of a magic word.